Pleasant good night to all of you. I am, of course, Shavian Sir Etienne, investigative journalist for Radio Madness. Here with me is my special guest, definitely, Mr. Enrick Harrigan. And I think I will just allow him to explain who he is, because he's not just an Anguillian, he's not just a businessman, but I feel the way I look at him is someone who is of significant importance in Anguilla, someone who is really for the culture and for someone who has Anguilla's interest at heart. He's one of those who I feel that operate behind the scenes in Anguilla and has the experiences of, well, from just many different avenues of just how much him and his family has done. So pleasant good night to you, sir. To the rest of the audience, who are you?
Good night, Shavian. Thank you for having me on the podcast. My name is Enrick Harrigan, the Harrigan family from Island Harbor, Webster's Lakes, Daddy Harrigan, my father, Sandra Harrigan from Blowing Point. So I'm basically split between the East and the West, running several businesses for many years, and I'm intricately involved in a lot of different Caribbean islands doing different projects of many types, and I get to see the in and outs of all the challenges, not just from infrastructure or which is the main thing that we do in support of, but also the ills and of their own politics, the ills of their own crimes, and the challenges and the resources and stuff. So I've been an all-around person working in almost every Caribbean island for many years under different companies.
Brilliant. My question to you is, first and foremost, in terms of your experiences with the different islands, well, first and foremost, the topic for tonight is the influences affecting child behavior and the PPA. The PPA, in my eyes, or for the audience to understand really and truly tonight, I just want to bring the topic forward. I'm not looking to divulge into any of the controversial topics or anything around it, but I think that there is a much bigger and wider discussion around the PPA and why it is even something that is of a talking point in Anguilla. You mentioned that you've worked with other Caribbean islands. How has, or I would say, what experiences in relation to what Anguilla definitely needs in terms of why we even are talking about PPA, in terms of those experiences across the Caribbean island? How can you say, I would say, how can you really, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, it's simple. I mean, our PPA is basically a power purchase agreement, and power purchase agreements can come in many different forms, or companies or persons. It is simply an agreement that allow a body or a company or a person to bring in financing in order to support a cause. And so a PPA could be for anything. It's just for the purchase of supplying power to the island. So
what other projects across the Caribbean? Because we looking at the PPA, from what we understand, is to do with renewable energy. You've explained that you've worked with other projects, other Caribbean islands. What does the Caribbean have in comparison to what we often think of in terms of renewable energy production on a whole? Anguilla would not have been the only Caribbean island to say want to pilot on the green belt, the green roadway to sustainable energy production. What does the Caribbean really have, or what has the Caribbean really done in terms of a viable energy solution that isn't based off of fossil fuels?
Still a technology that is emerging, and fewer islands are taking advantage of it. There were initiatives for many islands to really push forward, and Anguilla was in a very good position back in the days when Mr. Carty and David Carty was pushing this initiative. And we've fallen short of making this a priority from different governments as something that would potentially uplift the island in the greatest potential way. And, we have another moment to do it and do it right and do it under the conditions that benefit everybody in Anguilla. So if you take it simply even from the fact of the education that's needed to set up, to run, to maintain, this is one of the factors that we are trying to push in terms of really bolstering education in Anguilla, so that when we can produce persons that can actually run different energy systems in different countries, different islands, and let Anguilla be the catalyst and the lead for it. Well, the most recent solar farm that I've been involved in is the one in Statia, where they just actually, just yesterday, set up the first 100% renewable batteries, solar, and looking at other alternatives in wind. It's fully 100% off the grid at this moment. And that was yesterday. So we help them from everything from electric controls, solar panels, cleaning the panels. We had to supply different systems for them. And so, there've been a lot of changes over time with the technology changing. And there was a phased approach that took them almost 10 years to complete, probably between 7 to 8 years. And they finally got to the end of it with the last battery installation that is fully functional now.
Right. You mentioned, because I was making notes here, you were mentioning the education opportunities, say, renewable energy can bring for us. And it's not just the jobs, but we're looking at, say, improving or educating our workforce, making sure that our workforce doesn't just do bottom tier jobs, but can, say, be the engineers and be the ones to, say, do the project from top to bottom, from start to finish, from the procurement to the planning to the finished product. You mentioned that solar can really, or it's not solar, but renewables can really do that for us. Is there anything more you can expound on that with your experience or understanding in those fields?
Well, because the whole renewable part of it, in terms of carbon sequestration to the electrical engineering to the construction and infrastructure, the grid planning and studies, everything related to it is a lot of different education points that we would have the ability to educate our people to be able to run these systems. Now, it's not just solar or wind, as you say. You also have hydrogen energy that would also, look into other aspects of technologies. And these are the things that, we can start educating our younger ones in order to really participate in a complete diverse, options for education. You have geothermal, hydrogen, water, a lot of different things. So I think the even from the financial planning of it, there's so many aspects of it from mechanical engineering and so on. I personally think that something of this nature, bringing probably more than 500 potential jobs to the area and sustaining these students or persons who are involved, to be able to go out and perform activities on all the islands and even beyond different countries. And I think that's where we need to educate our people, not just to be operators or bus boys or hotel workers. We need to have a complete, I think Enrick is the catalyst to take Anguilla where we need to go in the renewables, but also to farm, its cooperatives and bring people and young students involved to be trained into the future of what we need for the island. And energy is one of the biggest vertical shifts that can take the island forward in the shortest amount of time. Not negating that need other infrastructure, but energy is the single most vertical shift that can happen right now.
Right, I agree. Then you were mentioning just a while ago that we need to, in other words, get our young people interested in looking into these different fields, these different career choices, as it can really do for us. But we can clearly see from recent events at the high school, the interest is elsewhere. What are the influences impacting the children that are making them so, or have such a lackluster interest in learning on a whole, from your perspective?
Well, I think we need to have, all of our parents, our community, our society, the government, everybody involved in a specific initiative that is 100% educating our kids, not 10%, not 50%. I mean, I overheard Brett Davis talk about some systems that they wanted for education, and they probably need $2 or $3 million, but the government is putting in $1 million. These are things I think no, we need to focus on putting the systems in place. And just like the hoteliers having, the best benefits of duty-free concessions and all these things, I think we need to really carve out what we want for the island and make education this time the first priority. The priority of making sure no child gets left behind in any aspect, whether they're in vocational school, whether they're doing languages, whatever field that child is persevering in. But I would also say that it needs to take a step into really, really treating our teachers and giving the teachers the tools and even the money. You treat them like they're rock stars. You give them the money because they're the ones that are going to shape the future of Anguilla. And I think it needs to start from a whole holistic approach. But the teachers are very important to helping in that aspect. And I think we demonize teachers. I mean, for me, I love all my teachers, but we the teachers are not getting the best support, in my opinion, catering to the needs of the children the way they should. And I think education has been put on the back burner to all the big projects and the things that we're doing on Anguilla. While they are important, I think we need to put a serious emphasis in investing into education.
I agree. And one of the follow-up questions I have here to ask you is that while we see the interest, or how to say, the importance of needing to make these investments, or how to say, back these interests with an investment into a proper investment into education. And we also have to consider that if we're going to go the direction of renewables, then we are essentially having to take the workforce at Enrick that is used to dealing with diesel generation to now shift them towards how to say, renewables. We can see with the automotive industry, it's not simple for the manufacturers to go from internal combustion engines to now electric vehicles. The skills are not easily transferable. The first thing that people say is that while yes, or someone may say yes, what he's saying is making proper sense. From your perspective, how do you think that we can fund this without it being a massive hit to the coffers?
Oh, you mean to the government, is what you're saying? Well,
right, because
let me go back a little further. Not if you're referring to the renewable energy part. That's not the whole gist of our conversation. There are a lot of things that we can do with willpower and determination that does not require money. One of the things that I've heard over time, and I've recognized that when persons come up with good ideas, a lot of the good ideas are just shot or not, and it's because the person that may have brought the good idea so that is going to preschool and kindergarten, should automatically start having, you know, they try to teach them more, you know, little motor skills, hand-eye coordination, and so on. But we should be teaching our children as well, early on, different languages. You know, Anguilla have a history of persons going away to different islands long ago to participate in Santo Domingo and Curacao and these different places. And I'm sure back then they had to learn. But if we equip our children to not just go to work in cane fields, but to be able to be persons who can speak the language and be involved in high-level discussions in any country, whether it be Spain or Santo Domingo, we can start this at a very early age. It was suggested at one time that you just get one good Spanish teacher and have that Spanish teacher rotate in these different schools from a very young age. And the cost of that one teacher would be very little. And you just rotate, you know, one day
Yikes. My best assumption is technical difficulties because he has been fading in and out. Give me one moment. Let me see if I can get him back quickly.
I'm back.
Hello?
I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
So
no, that's fine. Yeah, all good.
Yeah. So no, in general, if we actually make the determination, how much would it cost to really have one strong Spanish, and it could be anything, could be Italian, could, you know, but of course Spanish is the forefront. And I have to give, you know, I've heard that first from Kennedy Hodge, and he might have been the first person I heard with it, but whoever it is, it doesn't mean that it's not a good idea and it can't be done. And it's just the willpower to make it happen and to push these guys to decide. And, you know, and these are small areas that we can do to help improve. And then you go all the way into, you know, kids who you see are very talented in different areas. And we need to have the right teachers to be able to explore with the kids their exploration of what they really can do, what they want to learn. And we can't just, you know, beat every child up to learn the ABCs 1, 2, 3s. We have to have a child that, you know, may be very artistic and be able to build and design and do many different things. So we need to have that support from an early age, and the teachers to be able to discern, you know, what direction and what level or what inspiration they can give to the younger kids.
Mm-hmm. I agree. What was just thinking was just there crossing my mind is because you were explaining just now there about giving them a chance to explore their, in other words, their talents. Yeah, Sabi. And I was just thinking as a different perspective, looking at the influences impacting child behavior. I feel that's one thing I'm going to always want to really nail. The comprehensive school system, yeah, it's like, would you even say is a possible impact? Because in the sense that a comprehensive school system kind of, you try to bundle everybody together and you're trying to put all these subjects together into one massive umbrella, whereas there's been a conversation of you should have a technical school and your academic school, maybe even because you're looking at certain children, it allows for the adaptation of, or how to say, the allowance for different learning styles. We have children that are hands-on. Some of them are just straight books. I am someone that can even do both. But then you're looking at, if you're in a school system there and you're not getting a chance to even say, get a learning style that works for you, would you even say it's a possible impact as to why the children may even be feeling the way they do?
You know, I guess we expect children to just follow, you know, the one path and the one education system, and I know maybe that's the wrong way to put it as that, but this is when I think that the careful attention and the details from the teachers that we put in there to work with our young ones are there to really see what the children don't even have in themselves at the moment. Mm-hmm. And if they can start to encourage and allow the kids to explore things and talents that they've never seen or never understood, they would have as they see it, this can shape, designers and a lot of different people of many types of persons. And I think this is what we need. We grew up in an island of a bunch of people who want to be businessmen and people who, very less doctors. We had more pride in wanting to be pilots. Maybe on a small island, many people want to just leave the island, and so we had more people in boating and pilots, and they were praised as, persons of great interest. Well, we've gone beyond that now, and we need to explore all aspects of what the world has to offer now, and bring all the different technologies and persons and skills together to help us, you never know, build the next rocket ship on Anguilla. We have many persons who have discussed interest in trying to bring a lot of tech schools or bring certain things to Anguilla, marine biology being one of them, surrounded with the water that we have. That is something that is key. We live around it, and not even that is as important to us right now. And the whole Blue Belt initiative with the different countries, there are key things that they're trying to preserve, and the environmental department is probably doing some, but we're far from that. And we should invite maybe universities to come down and actually use Anguilla as a study ground, testing ground, including the carbon sequestration options that we have. These are things that they are ready to come and do very shortly, as long as we're participating in that renewable and blue initiative.
That's quite. I must say that was quite an interesting answer, because usually when you ask someone about comprehensive versus the separate school system, they always, but your perspective is rather, how about a different teaching style? Teachers that actually can see the child for what they could become and try to push them in that way, which I do agree. It's becoming a very rare thing to find those teachers nowadays. To be honest,
that is key, but we have to be very specific and put the energy and the money into those areas to support those teachers. It's not just, we're going to find a miracle teacher anymore. I think we were very lucky to have really cared about us and development and so on, and took pride. I mean, I think they were my parents, they were my teachers, they were our mentors, but it's not the same anymore. And I'm not knocking any new teacher today. I think that every teacher has so much more things to worry about than perhaps the teachers of back then. There might have been some talk of knives in schools. Now it's guns. So every teacher have a different challenge going forward, and and that safety is very important, and we need to stamp out these issues so that the teachers can teach and do what they do best, and not have to worry about every other ailment and issue around the world.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. It kind of builds into the overall topic for this week. It more so what I've been beating the pan on, alleviate the burden of all those or of everybody, and things will just, by right, you just flutter back to just a nice, enjoyable, peaceful place to live, because that wasn't how we were, to be very honest with you. Nonetheless, going back to where we first started in this interview, we're looking at the energy solutions, viable energy solutions.
Right.
From your point of view, right? How to say it? I guess the question is, every time we look at renewables, it seems as though it's the impossible. I think we've seen clear examples as to how to say it. Others trying initiatives, other businesses trying initiatives on the renewable avenue. What would you say be the biggest problem in the execution of a viable energy solution for Anguilla, as in that thing that really holds us back from really creating something that works for us?
Well, that's a loaded question, and I don't want to get too deep into other challenges that but
Mm-hmm.
we have the ability to do simple things even within our power grid that we have now, and
Mm-hmm.
we are not even thinking about the advancement of what we have in terms of certain. I shouldn't say we're not thinking about it, but I'll give you a simple example, and you'll see where this is coming from. Several years ago, I approached the CEO of Enrick. Right, there was a Trinidadian guy at the time, however, and we had special interests with certain persons at the highest level of Caterpillar and different companies. And long story is that even though you present to them options and give them, persons that they should liaison with for education reasons, for, studies and different things, it seems to be a different power struggle when it's down at other levels.
Mm-hmm.
To get the government to put certain initiatives in place to where any hotelier that's coming in to build a hotel, instead of having the hotel itself build and operate its own small mini power plant, how we put an initiative together where we are the ones that they're going to buy into, and we're going to create a standardized power grid system with the power generation, with different grid tie networks that can feed from different parts of the island. And therefore, if anything happens on Anguilla, if Enrick have a problem, the generators in the west at X hotels can support. If something happened in the east, the west can support the east, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can. And those were simple things. It was just to say, let's design a grid and let's put policy and initiatives in place, because the same money being spent with all these hoteliers to have these generators is the same money that Enrick will have to put out to create generators to keep prime energy to these hotels. So there's no money lost. It's the same money coming in, being spent in the country, and we could just channel it in different ways. Now imagine Enrick having the ability to train a bunch of young students to be the ones that maintain the generators at every hotel or every block of area that these hotels are. So it's no different to, like the tennis academy, where they're training persons at the tennis academy, but the tennis academy is producing the professionals that is training the hotel tennis group. Well, it's the same thing for utility. It's just the will to do it and put these things in place.
No, that makes perfect sense. And you talked about it's something that, let it be something that they buy into. So in other words, we're looking at with an ideology like that is a win-win-win for us as a country. Then how bad is a PPA? Because Anguilla isn't the only island where this ideology has been introduced. It had to have been, and even me as a journalist, in doing my due diligence and research, I have seen that St. Kitts has done a power purchase agreement. And from my knowledge, to just even give the audience a good synopsis, it has not been a pleasurable ride for the Kittitian people or government. How to say it? It's one thing to go to bring an idea to the forefront and execute, but when you don't execute, understanding every part of the plan or all of the implications it have, it can lead to something terrible. I feel like with this election cycle, we want people that are going in to make a decision understanding the full implications as of their actions, because we are small. It's gonna hurt, and it's gonna hurt hard. So how bad is a PPA in comparison to even say, yeah, go ahead.
You can't use a PPA as if it's a bad thing. It is who and how it's set up and structured. A PPA can be done in the same aspect of a group of interested parties in Anguilla who have the ability to bring in all of the expertise, the persons who can set up the infrastructure, I mean, everything. It could all be put together and done locally. The issue with PPAs are basically persons from the outside financing and putting in the installation, where they're automatically taking a huge profit away from that system. And these are things that we could do and keep on the island for ourselves. So that goes into, what are we really trying to do for ourselves? We need to be, I've said before, we need to have companies that are staple cooperatives or company-owned, local-owned entities that are run not by parties, but are run at the best standards that it can be, but to serve the best interests of the country in terms of producing electricity, but also in terms of producing profits that remain on the island. If most of everything is going to go up in smoke anyway, in terms of the fossil fuels, we want to be able to turn that into a renewable. When most of that was blown up in smoke and gone out of the country, most of that money remains in the country, and that money could be used for redevelopment. But if a PPA is done with people of interest on the outside, most of that money actually leaves the country, and that's what we're trying to attain here. That's the best goal, and that's when we say that we have the best vertical shift. There's no other project, and I will challenge anybody. There's no other project that would create the biggest vertical shift in terms of economic push than solving our energy crisis. This is a world problem. Food, of course, is the other, but we have a long way to go in the food production. And so if just the fuel alone that we're spending that goes off the island is saved in terms of what we do in renewables, this is anywhere between $80 to $100 million a year being saved on the island without having to leave and be blown up in smoke. That kind of money is actually outdoing the AI right now. That kind of money is outdoing. But that kind of money can pay for the airport, 3 times, 4 times over. That kind of money can build us, water networks that are, great for the island. So if we're going to look at really prioritizing what we need to do for the island, we need to really look at its biggest effects. Now, listen, we need tourism. Nobody's saying we don't need it. We need airports. Nobody's saying we're not. But if we take a look at what we need immediately, right now, that will bring the greatest return in the shortest to that, create an education need that fulfill the same issue we're having with all the students leaving school, creating something for them to do, giving them an opportunity to go to work on Anguilla, to work on any hotel with a renewable plant anywhere in the world, any country. The languages would be helping, and this is something that I think we really needed to do. But hey, we're still fighting it, and so we need. I think a lot of these things we need to just get out of our own way and make a decision. And I think it needs to be done where all Anguillians are involved, not the few that are trying to dictate how it goes.
One thing that came across my head as you were there explaining is the increase of demand for electricity. So we are looking at as Anguilla continues to develop, we're going to need more. There's going to be a much higher demand for electricity. The grid is going to have to get much bigger. We're looking at, even so, they've begun construction on the marina. So that's another multi-million-dollar project that is going to going to have such a high demand for electricity. How does the PPA allow for the electricity company to now grow in size to meet that demand, whether it may be an additional generator or female wind turbines or more solar panels, versus it being a system where it's what you referred to earlier, where people buy into the company, they pay into
Well,
it?
every project that doesn't require a PPA. Every project that is coming to the island, they have to create a backup system. They keep a prime backup system and a backup to the backup in case Enrick, for whatever reason, cannot produce power, which means every development. So Flag Luxury Properties. Flag Luxury Properties came to Anguilla and literally bought 4 2-megawatt generators, which can produce 8 megawatts in total. And at that time, I mean, they were almost close to half of the prime power, well, not half, but close to half. And they did that because they wanted to support the needs of their project. The marinas and all these developments would have to do the same thing. Do you know the cost of those generators just to bring them in? And if we were to take the same initiative, I mean, you're talking, tens of millions of dollars. And if we were to take the same initiative and say, okay, you're going to spend the money anyway, but we're going to channel it into our education system to make sure that we have competent and people that would be able to help maintain these generators, and it'll be run under cooperative, whether it's under Enrick or government or however. So that's your direct vocational activity from education right there. I mean, in terms of direct correlation. Then you have all the other aspects of maintenance and everything else that goes with it. So that is an easy situation. Just so you sign an MOU for a social clause that they develop, you sign an MOU that says, hey, you're going to be doing a good and a good for the country. And this good is by allowing this cooperative to handle. We now have a streamline of generators that carry the same type of parts, the same type of filters, the same type of so blackouts and downtimes would be very little comparingly to now everybody. This one have a Mitsubishi engine, this one have a John Deere engine, this one have this. Everything is different, and because we don't manufacture anything on the island, everything has to be imported. Then you got to check stock of where it's coming from. No, we have a system where we, just like we would allow specific packages of solar to participate on the grid in Anguilla, we would have a plan that says this is what you bring in. If your power needs is X, these are the us participate in creating these benefits to the country and to yourself.
No, I understand that. So then, okay, I guess the streamline of thought goes back to earlier where you were explaining that should we take this serious, this industry serious? In other words, we can be the leaders in this green wave, put this way, right? So then I guess the following question to that is, how can us who just barely getting into that, as in like, should people in a sense, how we can even say be the ones to drive it and say profit from it, in a sense that we are the ones to say pilot it, we are the leaders in it, and now we're taking it to the other Caribbean islands, gaining an few extra dollars and reputation.
Well, we're not the leaders in it. Obviously, other islands like Aruba have gotten far ahead of us because we don't even have 1 megawatt that is existing. And that was kind of small for Enrick to participate in a simple 1 megawatt. For whatever reason, whatever decision, I thought that was too small. There's a lot of other challenges where other companies were allowed to put up, larger systems, but that's a different topic. What we need to do now with the ever-evolving changes in the technology of renewables, we need to be the catalyst now to actually put together the best overall renewable package that deals with everything related. The whole purpose of renewables is to reduce carbon, and if we do that even from our sea life through the carbon sequestration, if we do that through even that has a great value to it. That creates other educational needs and so on. From our marine division, I think we really have an opportunity to look at hydrogen energy, which is the next big thing out there now. We're so close. I mean, literally, We just left even the construction industry, where JCB is the first company to come out with their backhoes and the rest of it with hydrogen systems. So
Engines, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so to say that right now Anguilla in any country would be looking, and we have a perfect example in St. Martin, would be looking at going to buy a 20 megawatt, or for any type of megawatt, looking at only diesel, I think they would be making a big mistake. And they all know that. But the point is, there are alternatives, and you need to buy for the future. You don't buy for what you need now only. And if you have an engine that can use natural gas, hydrogen, all the other types, you need to be prepared for that and to look at options. Ammonia is another option, but if we were surrounded by a lot of clean, unsalted water through springs, I mean, then hydrogen would have been 100%. Let's look into it and let's go forward. But we don't have that. So we have to go through a desalination process. But the fact is, we still need renewables in order to be able to create water, to use to drink and to use in this capacity for electrolysis. So.
Right. Okay. So then my next question is, right, the savings for customers. Okay. So essentially from the discussion today, right, we can essentially look at electricity generation from as in a viable plan from 2 points of views. You could go the power purchase agreement way, or you can simply be the signing of the document that you referred to, where rather than the hotels going to go spend that money on those generators anyway, they just they buy into our system. Okay, then what about the savings for consumers? We're looking at renewable energies and all of that. We're looking at the whole point of renewable energy, besides just the environmental impact, is the savings to the consumers. Then how does the savings differ in a PPA, whether the viewpoint on the PPA is bad or not? Looking at it in its bare nature, what would be the savings difference, or how would this, or could you explain the savings for consumers, in other words?
It's a good question, but again, we have to address the PPA as to whether the PPA is being conducted with a local intention or with a foreign intention. And just on the easiest scale of things, to make it simple, there are more than 25% in extra savings that would take part in our country. But at the same time, if we do it the wrong way, that's more than 25% that can be leaving the country from the potential savings or monies that would remain on the island. So if you want to put it in the simplest of terms, you can go into Anguilla, charging 50 plus cents a kilowatt hour, down to the generation of electricity on the solar and all the other alternatives, to be in the teens or much even less than much less than what it is. But there are a lot of different factors that you have to look into for the distribution of electricity, and why I have a problem with anyone coming in to do a PPA and all they want to do is produce. They're not the ones that are maintaining the grid, that have to send electricity to anybody on the island, including the hotel. And that is a very big cost to maintain. And if anything happened catastrophically, like a hurricane, that's where a lot of the money goes. So any PPA that's signed outside of Anguilla must include those factors that they have to be part of, or it shouldn't happen at all in this case. And we should be able to, Anguilla have the ability right now, with the money sitting on Anguilla. It is the willpower and the people to come together. And I'm not talking just about the government I'm talking about the whole entire island coming together and saying, this cooperative vision that we have, anybody that pays for electricity now becomes an investor in this cooperative, similar to a credit union. You deposit money into a credit union, you're part of the credit union. It's the same thing, similar for a cooperative for electricity.
do you think, because we saw what happened last year with oil prices and how they how's it, the impact of the price of a barrel of oil and how it impacted our electricity prices. Now, I am aware that the government's taxes also did play a major role in that, but that's not the point I'm really trying to look at. What I'm thinking is from the consumer point of view. We know that a barrel of oil decides electricity prices essentially, right? Do you think in terms of the consumer, there could be a viable way for Anguilla to say, or how to say, we can have any electricity grid where the consumer pays significantly less, or it can be done in such a way that the consumer pays next to nothing in electricity, whether it's because they have solar on their houses is contributing to the grid, or just with the way the system is set up, the consumer pays next to nothing.
We would like an ideal world where everyone pays zero, but that's not fully, if you own an oil field that produces so much barrels of oil, you can then essentially say, yes, because of the oil, we can create electricity and it be zero. I mean, Trinidad have one of the lowest costs of electricity, not because of solar, it's because they can produce, certain levels of fuels to run, the country. I think just like we have eradicate.roads, there's a company that is out there. They believe that it should be zero fuel use, zero carbon fuel use. And if you can eradicate.roads, you can eradicate the need for fossil fuels. Not immediately, but I think we should take the same trend. If we're so bold enough to say that's what we should be doing, okay, well, eradicate our fossil fuels from Anguilla so that we would be less dependent on any global foreign ship, war, country, anything that we have to depend on for survival, growth, or energy to be able to live like the rest of the world.
No, I appreciate that. Then my thought is, as we start to, as I start to bring it close to an end, because to be honest with you, as I explained earlier in the life, my intention really for the audience is to just get a good idea as to why we are even having to have this conversation of a PPA and what's out there. If we were to really,
I don't want to cut you off. We're having the conversation because many of us perhaps still don't believe we have the will to do it and the power to do it as for ourselves. And I think as long as we get past that hurdle, everything else would be smooth sailing. And that I think you and I have had discussions about, being able to take the expertise and so on, even from the British. And you can go to many areas, and so if we were to really explore those options where the British will bring in the expertise and we already have the money sitting on the island because it's there by every engine that is bought, it's there for every bill that is paid, it's there for every carbon of fuel that we're burning to go through the tanks. So all it is potential monies sitting, waiting to be burnt or used in this aspect of renewable energy. And that part, a lot of people will say, yeah, but it's sitting there. It is sitting on the island.
I mean, to be honest, you spoke about will. It's like even those that we put in power don't even give our people the will, the opportunity to even have the will, because I'm thinking of to say the many times where procurement goes out for a project and the timing of it is so short that all the requirements are so high and so specific that it blocks our people from the opportunity, or even the opportunity to even say bid on the project. I mean, you can even say how many feel about .ai. While one may feel as though give it to an experienced company, a company that knows what they're doing, what the case may be, you have others say it should have been done in-house. Others may feel as though it should have been given to the Anglian company. I I say, to be honest with you, it should be given to the it should be put into to the hands that it can be cared for the most, where it can benefit the most. That's the way it should be. As
Right.
simple
Whether
as.
yeah, whether that means sending it out to someone to do that had to be determined, or whether it means keeping it on island. I think the potential of that aspect is lost in terms of where we were and how fast it was growing since. And that's a discussion we can have at another date. But I will go back to the last question you just asked. What was that last question again? To tie it in with the AI, it was
Oh,
uh,
I was talking. Well, prior to that, I was talking about Will, and then what I was about to ask you
oh
before
yeah,
we
yeah.
did.
So no,
Mm,
we need to have an attitude of being pro
mm,
and willing, pro and will of
mm,
business, pro, my fellow's keeper, my, and that is where I think we need to have subsequent talks about the banking crisis
mm,
situation there now. But in terms of pro Anguilla, if the British can send us expertise to do certain things and we can set it up within that, I think the
mm,
power struggle for many of us is who is the Anguillian that would be doing it. And I don't think we need to have the mindset of who is doing it. We should have a dead set initiative, and that initiative is whenever we have the will, the power, and the objective to get it done, we do it. So this thing about Anguilla growing too fast or moving too fast, yeah, there are aspects of this that say yes, we need this now, but and I can applaud a lot of it. I think but I have a problem with things not being done with the equitable interests of everybody at the same time, than for a few that will benefit in the shortest amount of time. And so it's not about the fact that we don't need these things, but if we take the objective, and the objective is to eradicate dirt roads or eradicate all fossil fuels, okay, then what is the objective from 1, 2, 3 in order to do that? And if that time is now, because this is the shortest potential opportunity we have to make the biggest growth that affects everybody. The beauty about this is that it affects the poor people who still have to pay electricity, and it affects the hotels that benefit from tourism. So this can literally create a reclassification of what we purposely do for the country that benefits everybody at the same time.
mm, mm. No, as you were there talking about it, and still on the topic of will, it's like I kind of feel though, like in listening to you, it reminds me of that feel that the ingredients that had that will, it's like it's either that willingness isn't being passed down, or they're starting to fade out like the end of a song, in the sense of there have been so many Anglian families that have had that will, that daring will to go out there and do. One of them, I remember you from our dialogues, is Ricketts Properties, who essentially, from my understanding, would have been one of the pioneers in Anguilla's luxury tourism scene. They were the first, and they've carried that through many generations, you understand me? If we look at even say a business like Lakes World, that's a business that has stood there for generation after generation after generation. It's the will to want to start on this initiative. I think that there are a lot of businesses, families, and individuals, fallen and present right now, that have had the will to go out. I mean, the late Honorable Sir Emil Gum said, "You can't throw fish traps in the valley bottom. You have to go out there." If our fishermen don't have the will to go out there in the choppy waters, the hot sun, and those unfavorable conditions, how are they going to come back home to feed their families? So it's like at the end of the day, while we speak about will, it's like we need to have that next generation or considering that it's election time now, we need to have leaders that have that willingness, that Anguillian willingness to do. So then I'll take it to this next question, right? How do you feel about, in general, the politicians' attitude? I'm not targeting any political party. How do you feel about the politicians' willingness to want to do in the most Anguillian way right now?
To do in the most Anguillian way right now. I think every discussion that is had from the lowest of level to the highest of level should always start with Anguillians given the advantage, Anguillians given the head start, if you want to call it, Anguillians, given the benefit of the doubt most of the time. Now, that might sound, too, far off, but the truth is that's the way we need to be to treat each other and the discussions that we have. So we're in House of Assembly and having conversations about things that is not really taking the country as far and fast as it can go. And I think we need to recognize that if it's pro-Anguillian, it shouldn't be who is doing it. It should be, if this is the benefit, how fast can we get it done for the benefit of the country? And I don't think we have that. I think right now it's more or less, he can't, if he gets it, he's going to have certain controls. And if this one gets it, and, that's where the nepotism and all these things coming in. I think we need to just go past that. And there are very simple ways to do things, and we fail not even to do those. And a perfect example for me was a good friend of mine who have a large number of properties in Tobago. I was concerned when I look at, the families, and they resemble a lot of our families, my direct families in Anguilla. I was concerned as to how, certain family members have this property and how this one got this business and all these things. And at the end of the day, the father couldn't decide on many things. He decided to put the names in a brown paper bag, take it up, and whatever that child gets, he gets. But you get it. Now you explore the opportunity for that child to take advantage of what he got. So if we got Anguilla, we want to be distinctive in Anguilla, that everything is pro-Anguilla. That's the way it is in Tortola right now. I'll tell you, right now, if I want to buy a property in Tortola and I'm not from Tortola, and I want to put a development on that property, on a property there, that entity have to put it and publish it in the paper and say what they want to do with the property before they can even purchase it. And if a group of Tortolian people come and say, no, we want to purchase it, they have first right to purchase it before the other developers. That's a strong mentality. Are we, look at Tortola and where it is in terms of its offshore, of where it is with its, even with its infrastructure. I think we can be one of the greatest islands in the Caribbean, surpassing Tortola and surpassing Cayman Islands, two islands of which I care about as well. But we need to have the will and the initiative to make it happen and do it.
No, I agree with you. I do support that ideology because, to be honest with you, even I listen to...
Remember that to be honest part, right?
Yeah.
But go ahead. We're always honest with each other.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I wish we had more of that in our society in general, but anyway, while you were talking about the speed in which we need to make decisions, oftentimes I feel as though our parliamentarians do us a level of disservice in terms of, from the way I'm looking at it, right, is that if something's, like you explained earlier, if something is of such surreal seriousness, then why can't we have an emergency House of Assembly? Take, for instance, how to say, the young...
I don't know what happened. Looked like we...
Hello? Right.
Are we still here? It just paused for a moment.
Right. Don't know what happened, but anyway. Right. You hear me, right?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. Because it led me into something I want to talk about, but go ahead.
Right. So when the incident came up with the young student that lost his life tragically, my first thought is like you go to an emergency, you hold an emergency house of assembly. You understand? I mean, you need to be on it, like because in true societies, like outside, like, with the exception of the United States, of course, when you watch how first world countries respond to serious acts of tragedy or violence, they move one time, as in within less than a week or just a matter of a few days or hours, they're in the house, their respective house, and they are deal with the policies because, in other words, they don't want this to happen again. Like, for instance, here in the UK, one clear example as to how fast the UK government moves when things happen is when you see a co-worker explained to me that a contractor, he fell off the edge of a multi-story building, and when he went over, the steel from the concrete walls, it went straight through his body. It was a very tragic day. Within within I think it's either the same week or next week, the UK had brand new health and safety legislation and policies that had to be adhered to one time. One of them being that the top of the steel knob must have caps on the top of them. We're watching that. If we say that we are so much of a 5-star island, we want to keep ourselves up here. We want to be respected up here because we feel as though we are up here. Then when things happen, when things go wrong, we need to go before the House of Assembly with a level of urgency, a level of seriousness, and a level of intelligence, in the sense that you want to bring legislation and policies that ensure that this tragic thing does not happen again. And that also helps to create a level of reassurance to the populace to know that, hey, my leaders that my tax money is paying for, the leaders that I voted for, notice I'm saying leaders, not politicians, leaders. Right. My leaders went to the House of Assembly and they handled business so that this thing, was unfortunate it doesn't happen, it is unfortunate it happened, it would not happen again, so that another family, another individual, or society on a whole does not have to carry that pain or experience that ever again, you know?
No, I agree. I think our leaders have ways of advancing things that they want to advance, and other things that they don't have a very good handle as to how to handle it or what to do, that they tend to shy away from solving those problems at that moment. And I think those are the things that we need to distinguish and say, when we have these problems itself, we need to find the solutions as fast as possible. Like you say, make it a priority. And if it's something that's a phenomenon, and I'll give you an example. And I know when they were talking about gay marriage and so on, they had this big town hall meeting at the church in Angola. And of course the Christian council and the various pastors come out and say, no, there's no such thing, we don't want this, and however. And I remember one of our current politicians tried to explain to the masses at the time in a way that, the world is evolving and we need to adapt certain things, and it needs to be put in place, and we need to be prepared for it. And of course, nobody wanted to hear it. He got shot down, and it was not that he was wrong. It was just we put a blind eye to things we don't want to hear and want to deal with. And sometimes even death or other things, we don't know how to fix certain ills of like that tragic death. How do you fix that? Where do you find the smoking gun? How do you solve that problem? You're not going to solve it like that. So those things tend to take longer, but those are the things that we should be digging in much deeper and faster and pulling in everything that we need to deal with this. And that's why we said it needs to start from early childhood education, so that the elements of things that would prevent us from getting to that point will be done 10 years in advance. And that's how we need to start thinking. All my work on Montserrat, I was so proud, going to Montserrat for the first time many years ago, where, believe it or not, Montserrat had wind turbines in the meaning that's when renewable energy, even with them at the time, was sort of a big thing, but it was far from the technology we have today. And they had so many things going, but unfortunately, the other tragic events happened in Montserrat. But if Montserrat didn't have those tragic issues with the volcano and so on, it would be the leading island in the entire Caribbean today for all the things that they had. But that's a different topic, and we'll talk about that. But what I do want to eventually expound upon, like you mentioned, us coming together to solve problems. That the banking crisis and the banking debacle that we have in Anguilla, those issues we had was very solvable. And those are the times when we need to get together as people and say, these banks have greater interest for the country than self or party. And we needed to go into a closed room and we don't walk out until we have a solution. And if we lay out all the solutions, say, okay, fine, we've exhausted everything, but that was far from anything that was done. So we'll save that for another long topic that I want to expound on.
There's more to it, to be honest with you, because even so, what even crossed my mind in terms of even when I was on the topic of seriousness and level of seriousness we should have for House of Assembly. What even crossed my mind is, how to say it, I can't remember if it's with a discussion we've had, but I know I've told someone that, how to say it, the tail doesn't wag the head wags the tail. And I remember doing that as a cadet, a former cadet, And I said in the sense of, look at our ministers of government, and it doesn't matter, once again, I'm not targeting anyone in particular, but I'm just talking about ministers of government on a whole, because it's not just this set. Remember years back, there was even a fight in the House of Assembly.
Right.
You understand me? Looking at the behavior from those at the top, and then the expected behaviors from the youth in the school. I mean, if you tell me that you're a minister of government and you got all those bad words in your mouth, you expect me to be talking to you like a saint? You understand? I mean, if you, a minister of government, could get yourself in hot water and could get away with it, or have no charges brought against you, or for your own organization to have nothing to say against you, then I think I should be held to the same standards. I should be held to the same, because I mean, like, you're at the top. If you're at the top and you say you're responsible for legislation and policy, and you get that work, I don't care. I will do my due. You understand me? And I could understand, not that I will, but I'm saying that I can understand where those may have that level, that perspective. How do you feel about the ministers of government behavior, and how even that contributes to the overall impact or influences that impact child behavior in the schools right now? I've always said that I believe it has a direct correlation, but someone would say that I'm trying to blame this minister behavior for this specific thing. And I think it starts with leadership that starts to put perspective into what is needed now for our country, and not necessarily now for now, but now for 10 and 15 and 20 years from now. We don't have, we get into politics. I don't think we have an objective that says what we're doing is for this cause in Anguilla. And because we have the political system, it's about preservation of party, not preservation of Anguilla first. And there's too many examples you could see about that. But nevertheless, that's what we have. But we have to raise beyond that and raise our thinking and address the matters of, is this really helping us for the greater good, or it's only helping me for the immediate good? And if it's only helping you for the immediate good, what good is it when you are going to argue about something now in the House of Assembly and we don't? And I think everything that we do should find some sort of resolve. If we have a discussion in the House, it should have a resolve. If we have a disagreement in the House, we should put a vote on it. It should have a resolve, and it should be resolved from
and I think this is where the Speaker of the House have different leaderships, and they can set examples. But I think the example need to be set that when we leave the House of Assembly, we're pro and
Mm.
willing, and we're friends. But when we're in the House of Assembly, this is like,
Business.
you're it's all business, but we can discuss whatever we need to discuss. We could take the gloves off if we have to, but at the end of the day, find a resolution, and I think that would help solve. That would partly help solve some of the issues where the kids today are not finding resolution. They're getting
No.
angry and doing other things. And I think there's a correlation with finding resolution between the leaders and our systems and also the kids.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I feel as though the community in general just a bit I would say a bit is an understatement, but nonetheless, I think the community is a bit fed up and just tired and exhausted of the constant fighting between either members um, on other sides of the aisle. To see that for the whole election cycle, for the whole 5 years, you can say that these two parties have sat in power, whether one is the majority or one is the minority. It has always been a constant fight. And then, I mean, remember, right? One of the dolphins in our coat of arms stands for unity. The dolphins of the coat of arms stands for unity, strength, and endurance. Well, I must say we have the strength to tear each other apart and divide each other, but I don't think that was the real purpose of the strength that our forebearers and ancestors fought for. You understand? We had
Correct.
the